Good morning, students.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning,
Good
ma'am.
morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good
Yes,
morning,
very
ma'am.
good morning. Very good morning to all of you.
Good morning, ma'am.
Yes. Are you all able to see my screen? That white screen?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
No,
No.
ma'am.
Okay. Okay.
No.
How about now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Fine. Okay. So last class we were trying to look into the overview of what is database, what is DBMS, and we saw what are the different characteristics of database approach. So these were the things that we were touching upon in the last class. Okay, today let us see, as I told you in the last class, I'll be dealing with what is called a very important topic, that is called actors on the scene, and we'll also be looking into workers behind the scene. Now, this is an important question also as far as your examination is also concerned. So, who are these actors on the scene and who are the workers behind the scene? Now, first let us understand who are these, and then we'll go into who are the people who are actually involved in actors on the scene and workers behind the scene. Now, when you have a small database, let us say you have a list of contact numbers, you have a list of address, then only one person is required to manage that particular database, and most probably it will not be shared by anyone. You have your own database of your friends' phone numbers and addresses. So we don't share it, or there will be no multiple users for that. So there are no many people who are involved. But when you go for large companies, very big companies, there are many people who are involved in the maintenance of a large database, wherein you are going to have, let's say, hundreds of users. So when you have hundreds of users, you need to have some people who will be working on the database, or who are going to involve in the day-to-day use of that large database. Whoever is going to be, in other words, I say, directly involved with the database, we call them as actors on the scene. Who are the people who will help us to design this database, who will help us to use the database, who will help us to maintain this large database which has got multiple users or hundreds of users? Who are those people? Those are the people who are directly involved with the database. Such people, you call them as actors on the scene. Okay. Next, we will be also looking into who are the workers behind the scene. When I say workers behind the scene, they are the people who are going to maintain the database. They may not be directly involved with the database itself, but they'll be working in the background. In order to help you to use the database, they have to maintain it. Such people who are not directly involved with the database itself, but they are involved in maintaining, they work in the background, they are called workers behind the scene. Okay, so that's a difference between who is an actor on the scene and who is a worker behind the scene. Who is an actor on the scene? Whoever is directly involved with the database, day-to-day use of the database, you call such people as actors on the scene. When I talk of workers behind the scene, they are not directly involved with the database, with the usage of the database, but they are involved in maintaining this database so that the others are able to use it. They are working in the background, as I said. Such people are called as workers behind the scene. Now let us try to list out who are the actors on the scene, or who are the people who are going to be directly involved with the database. The first and most important person who is the actor on the scene is the database administrator. Database administrator is one actor on the scene. The next person who is involved is the database designers. Third one, very, very important actor on the scene, the end users. Fourth one, the system analyst. And we have the application programmers who are involved in programming, or you can also call them as basically the software engineers. Okay. Now these are the most important people who are involved or who are called as actors on the scene. Now let us go with the first one, database administrator. What is the job of a DBA? Can anybody tell me? Database administrator, let's call them as a DBA. What is a
database administrator used to specify and organize the data?
Organize the data, okay. Anyone else? Control who access how much, okay, very good. Anyone else? All right. Now this database administrator, what is this? See, whenever we have a huge database, okay, there should be somebody who should be able to manage these resources. Okay, there should be somebody to manage the resource, somebody to control and coordinate the resources. Such a person is this database administrator. So administering all the resources, database itself is a resource. That's a primary resource. Secondary resource is your DBMS, any related software is all secondary resources. So there should be some person who has to administer or who has to control and coordinate the functioning of these resources. That is the job of the database administrator. So this database administrator, he is responsible for authorizing the access to the database. That means he is responsible for making the users authorized, to differentiate between an authorized user and an unauthorized user. That means you are trying to give them a password, you give a username for all the users. That means you are trying to give authorization to the users. So coordinating and monitoring the entire set of resources. You try to buy some software, hardware resources that are needed. Such activities are all nothing but the functions of the DBA. He is also responsible for problems such as if there is going to be some kind of security breach, okay, or some kind of very poor, the database is working very slow, very poor response time. So for all this database administrator is responsible. So obviously he is not the only person, he is the administrator. Obviously under him there will be so many people who are involved who is going to support him as a team. So what is the job of a DBA? I said he is going to control and coordinate all the resources that are part of your DBA. Resources, when I say database itself is a resource, DBMS is a resource, any other software that is required, hardware, that is, all these are resources. So when there are multiple users who are using these resources, obviously there should be some person who is trying to control and coordinate. That control and coordination is done by the database administrator. And as I also told, he is responsible for authorizing the access to the database. Who is an authorized user? Who is an unauthorized user? All this job is done by him. Also, he is responsible for any kind of security issues. If there is going to be a breach of security, DBA will be held responsible for that. Okay, so he is an actor on the scene. Why do we call him now actor on the scene? Because he is directly involved with the database. Any person who is directly involved with the database, you call such people as actor on the scene. All right. Second one, the database designer. He is also one of the important actor on the scene. What does he do now? Now this database designer, he is responsible for identifying the storage of the data, how the data has to be stored, what are the important structures or the control structures or the data structures that appropriate one what I should be using in order to store my data. That is the job. To identify all this job is the responsibility of a database designer. Also, I said there are multiple users. Is it not? Now, this database designer, he has to communicate with all these users in order to understand the requirements. Every user will have their own set of requirements. You may be learning this in software engineering as you go ahead. Every user will have their own requirements. So the database designer has to communicate with all the users who are the users of a particular database. Take the requirements from him and then create a design which will meet their requirements. So that means they are going to develop multiple views. In the last class, we discussed that every user will have a different perspective, a different view, correct? A principal may want a different view, HOD may want a different view, faculty may want a different view. So there has to be different views because the requirements of each of these users are going to be different. So he has to talk or he has to communicate with these different users, get their different requirements, accordingly design the database which will provide the respective views. Okay, so that's a very important job of this database designer. Again, he is directly dealing with the database, hence he is also a very important actor on the scene. The next very important actor on the scene are the end users. Who are end users? Whom do you call as end users?
Customers.
Customers, okay. Anyone else?
Who actually access the database?
Very good. Okay. So here we don't generally call them as customers, but okay, we can take them as customers. End users are people who are accessing the database in order to get some results. Okay. So if you want to generate some report, you sit and access the database and write a query and get a report out of it, or you write a query and get a result out of it. Such people are called as end users. Now, there are several categories of end users. Okay, there are several categories of end users. The first one is we call them as casual end users. Now, who are these casual end users? Casual end users are those who will, very occasionally access the database. But whenever they access the database, they want some different information out of the database. That means they want some different information from the database every time they try to access. What I can say, some high-level manager, for example, is a very good example of a casual end user. For example, I say principal can be considered as a casual end user. So he is not going to every day sit and look into the college website or look into the second semester website, is it? Occasionally he will look into it. So maybe at the end of every internal, maybe at the end of every month, he may want to see what is the progress of the second semester student. So he is occasionally using the the database, and he wants different information every time he accesses. That means when I say principal is trying to access, okay, today he has seen that the progress is around first internal is over and this is the score of all the students. He has seen that. Next month after second internal is over, again he may log in to see what's happening. He may not want the same information. Obviously, it has to be updated, and he will look out for a different kind of on an average how much they have scored, including first and second internal marks. What is their final score? After third internals, he will try to see whether everybody has reached the minimum, who has got out of out. These kind of information he may try to see. So they are called as, generally the middle level managers or the high level managers are generally called as the casual end users. Casual end users are those who occasionally use the database, and every time they want different information. Each time they look into the database, they want something different. Okay, so they're generally managerial level people are called as casual end users. The second type of end users you call them as naive or parametric end users. Majority of the end users will fall into this category. Majority. We are all parametric or naive end users in some way or the other. So what is the job of this parametric end users? They'll go on querying the database in order to get whatever results they want using some standard type of queries. And I said they will use something called as, generally parametric users will make use of what is called as canned transactions. What is canned transactions? I told you in the last class itself. They are already the queries which are pre-programmed and they are tested. So who are these end users now? Can we have some examples? These are end users who go to the, let us say we all go to ATM. We withdraw money or we try to deposit some money. So that means what we are doing? We are using the canned transaction. Canned transaction means what? Transactions or the queries which are already pre-programmed and they are tested. You enter your PIN, the query is executed. You enter how much amount of amount you want to withdraw, the query gets executed. But that means the query is already there. You only have to fill in certain data it is asking, which you have to give. Once you give that, it will give you the result back. So ATM, when we all go and use, what we are doing, we are actually accessing the bank database, right? Next, let us say I can give you good examples of IRCTC reservation. Any reservation, ticket reservation. What do? We go open the website and we give the necessary data and we start trying to, we give the necessary data in the form of a query actually. And then we get the results or ticket or whatever you want, you get. So these why I said majority of the people fall under this parametric end users. We are the ones who make use of the services that the database is going to provide. So any database you want to pay some bill, let's say you want to pay Bestcom bill, you want to pay, you want to make it online payment for the Bestcom bill. So you open the Bestcom website, you go into that corresponding link and then pay it. So that is nothing but you, in that case, you are a parametric or a naive end user, right? Next, we have next type of end user. The third type of end users are called as sophisticated end users. Who are the sophisticated end users? Any engineers, scientists, some business analyst, who are going to, use their use the database to develop some applications so that they keep doing some complex computations. Is it not? Engineer, a scientist will keep doing some complex computation for which he will try to program a database and make use of it. Such end users are called as sophisticated end users. To meet their complex requirements, they are trying to implement some applications. So for which they make use of this database. So such people are called as sophisticated end users. The fourth type of end user is a standalone users. So standalone users, we basically maintain a personal database, so which is generally not shared by others. Suppose I have a collection of a lot of music and different types of music. So I try to develop a music database for my own usage. Okay. So that it is easy to use for me. If I make it menu based, or I will make it a GUI based, or I try to, so that becomes a very easy for me to identify or search where a particular song is. I don't have to open everything and keep searching whether that song is there with me or not. So it's a kind of personal database, which standalone means I am the only person who is going to use it. Or another application I can give, another example I can give is, let's say, some kind of a tax package database I try to build. So I have to pay my income tax, I have to file my IT returns. So what do? I have my own tax database. What is the salary I get? What is the deduction that's happening? How much IT I'll have to pay every month? So all this is my own database, which is again not being shared by others. Since it's my own database, I'm the only user, we call such people as standalone users. Any doubts? These are the 4 important types of users, end users. When you come to end users, we have casual end users, we have naive or parametric end users, sophisticated end users, standalone users. So this is about actors on the screen. That means we saw, one more is there. The next type of actor on the scene is system analyst. System analyst, and we have application programmers. Generally, we call them, as I told, we call them as software engineers. So what does the system analyst does? What does this application programmer does? Now, this system analyst, his job is to determine the requirements from the end users. Especially, he will go to the naive and the parametric end users. Who is a parametric? We are all parametric end users. Suppose I want to do railway reservation. So he will come to different customers and ask, how do you want this railway reservation website to look? Correct? He may ask the bank customers, how does the banking website, what are your requirements? What do you look out for? So suppose I can ask you, suppose we are trying to build a website for our department. Then I can call some of y'all and ask your opinion as to what are the requirements that you are looking out for. Now, once he takes the requirements, this system analyst will develop some kind of specifications based on those, so that those requirements are satisfied. Now, these specifications have to be implemented. Now, this implementation of these implemented means you have to implement as a program, is it not? Otherwise, you cannot work. You have to implement it as a program, you have to test it, you have to debug it, document it. So these are nothing but done by your application programmers. So these analysts and programmers together, sometimes we call them as software engineers. So these are the people who are actors on the scene. So we started with who are the actors. Database administrator is one important actor on the scene. Then we went for database designers. Then we went for end users. Again, under end users, we have several categories of end users: casual end user, naive or parametric end user, sophisticated end users, standalone end user. Then system analyst and application programmers. Together, we can call them as software engineers. So that's about who are the actors on the scene. Any questions still here?
Ma'am, can you explain about naive or parametric users again?
Yeah, naive or parametric user, as I told, forms the majority of the users are naive or parametric users. Majority of them. Why do I say that? Because we are all of us, you, me, all are naive or parametric end users. Because anytime you want to do a reservation, you go and open the IRCTC website and you start doing the reservation. That means what? You go into that website, you try to access that database, you try to make your ticket, you try to book your ticket, you get your ticket booked, right? So that is nothing but you are trying to access that particular IRCTC website or database, and you are getting your results, you are getting your query executed. Similarly, you go to internet banking you have. So you open your bank account, you try to access how much of amount is there, what has got debited, what has got credited, you try to make some deposit, you try to pay some bills. These are all nothing but you are trying to use the bank database. So again, there you are a parameter. Those what do I say? Those users' main job is to query and update the database. Whoever is involved, majority of them who are involved in querying the database, you query it, is it not? You find out whether a ticket is available or not. So if a ticket is available, you book a ticket. So thereby what is happening? You are updating that particular database. Again, you go to your banking website, you are trying to debit some amount, you are trying to transfer some amount, let us say. What are you doing? You are executing the query. You are updating the bank database once again. Your account gets updated, right? So those are all nothing but canned transactions wherever you execute. Most of the parametric users will execute the canned transactions. Canned transaction means, I repeat again, canned transaction means transactions which are pre-programmed and it is tested and it is ready for you to execute. You only have to give certain information. that particular data it will take and it will execute your query. Such a transactions you call them as canned transactions. Is it clear, Rupal?
Yes, ma'am.
Any doubts, anyone so far? Actors on the scene? Okay. Now, let us move on to another important concept. Who are the workers behind the scene? I told you already, actors on the scene are those people who are directly involved with the database. These workers behind the scene are those who design, use, they administer a database, all that they will do, but they are not directly involved. Indirectly involved means what? They work in the background. Okay, so who are they are not interested in the database itself, but maintenance and operation of this DBMS as a whole is the responsibility of the workers behind the scene. Who are the workers behind the scene? Let us see that. Now, we have somebody called DBMS system designers and implementers. Then we have tool developers. Right? And then we have operators. Operators and maintenance personnel. That they are very, very important people. Now, who are these DBMS system designers and implementers? Now, when I told you in the last class that whenever we talk about DBMS, there are a lot of modules which are involved, or modules, or I call them as softwares, or you have some lot of interfaces which are involved in this DBMS. Modules means, for example, in the last class I told, we have something called as concurrency control module. Why concurrency control module is used? If multiple users are using the database at the same time, still you are going to, each one of the user will get the correct result. How is it getting possible? It is possible because of the concurrency control module. You also have something called as a recovery module. Okay, like this there are several modules which are involved, and you have to also implement, I said, all the information about the database, that is your metadata, is available in the catalog. So somebody has to implement this catalog, somebody has to develop this catalog, correct? And I said you are going to provide a lot of interfaces, so somebody has to provide these interfaces, controlling this concurrency, controlling this data recovery, controlling the security. Security is a separate model, protection is a separate module. All this is done by the DBMS system designers and implementers. They are not directly involved with the database, like what is the current availability, how many records are there, how many columns are there. They are not bothered about that. But who is going to provide IRCTC website? They are not bothered about the database as it is. But when two people are trying to book a ticket at the same time from the same place, same destination, both of you should not get any errors. How is that managed? How is that managed? That is managed because of this module called as concurrency control. So there should be someone who is trying to develop this, who is developing or who is maintaining this concurrency control module. That is nothing but your system designer or your implementer. Okay. Next is tool developers. Okay. Now, when we take a huge database, everything cannot be managed manually. There are many things which are automated. There are many things which are, some packages may be there. There are some tools may be there. There may be packages for database design. There may be packages for, performance monitoring. There may be package for a graphical user interface. There may be a package for, or a tool. When I say package, a tool for trying to simulate the database. If you want to test the data, You may have to use a tool. Everything can't be done manually. So you try to automate many things. When I say automate many things, you have to have some kind of packages or some kind of tools has to be there. So there are people who are involved only in developing this particular tools. They are not involved directly with the database, but in order to work, for you to work on the database without any hassles, you have to have some tools for all these activities. These tools are developed by tool developers. That's why they are called as workers behind the scene. Then the next one is operator and maintenance personnel. They are very much responsible for running and maintaining the hardware and software environment for the database. So you have to have an operator who is able to help you out in how to run your database and all these things. So these workers behind the scene, they will help you to use the database system, but they will not be using the database. They will make sure that the database is available to the end users. They will make sure that database is available to end users so that they can use it without any problem, without any hurdles, but they themselves won't be using the database, right? So that's why they are called as workers behind the scene. So DBMS, system designer and implementer, tool developer, operators and maintenance personnel. These are the people who are working behind the scene so that the database becomes useful for the user. Right? Any questions so far? Any issues? Any questions?
No, ma'am.
All right. If there are no doubts, then let's proceed further. Right. So let me go to the next sheet. Okay. Yes. So next we will be learning about what are the advantages of, this is again a very important question. What are the advantages of using database approach? Initial 1 or 2 classes is only theory like this, but later on we'll be moving to some very important, interesting concepts like schema, entities, attributes and all that. That time the subject will get even more interesting. Advantages of using database approach. Let us go. There are a couple of advantages. Let us touch upon a couple of them and I'll go in detail one by one. The first most important advantage is controlling the redundancy. What do you mean by redundancy?
Duplication.
Okay, good.
Repetition of data.
Very good. Okay. Now, when you go for this traditional file processing method, see there are two approaches. One is your file method, file approach. The other one is our database approach. We can have separate files or you can build a database. Now, when I have in the last class, I gave an example that suppose I am building a second semester database or I am using a second semester file which is going to contain USN, student name, okay, when did you join, how did you join, which quota you went through, all this information, basic information I am having, one file, Excel sheet, let us say I am having. Now, I am talking of the file approach, okay. So I as a faculty have this data. So I am a faculty, I am going to have this particular data with me because I need your data. So now, as a HOD will also be having a similar data. Okay, an accounts officer, the same example I am taking what I took in the last class. An accounts officer will also have the same data. He'll have his own Excel sheet. Then the exam coordinator will also have this same data. He'll also have his own Excel sheet. So now what will happen? Suppose I have to change something in your data. Let us say USN has changed. For some reason, the USN of a particular student has changed. All right. So somebody's USN, instead of 1BY MC, what is that? 002, whatever. Who's that? Manoj, can you please mute? Manoj. Okay, so this particular USN, suppose I want to change it to, let us say 1BY MCA 002. Something like this, I want to change it. Now, I will get to know that the USN has changed it like this, so I will change it in my copy. That means I am the faculty, I am changing it in my copy. Now what will happen? The HOD may get to know, he may not get to know, he may change, he may not change. So there is going to be some kind of inconsistency there. This accounts person, he may also know or he may not know, or when he is trying to enter it, he will enter it as 1B. Y is gone. So there is a mistake now. Exam section fellow, when he tries to change it, he will change it as MCA 02. Again, this is wrong. This is also wrong. What is happening? The same data, since we have multiple copies, right? Each one has to change so many times. How many ever copies are there? That many times I have to sit and change. Though I change it, let us say, first of all, that itself is a redundant task. Even though I do it, these kind of mistakes may occur. I may do it properly. I may do some mistake while typing. So all this will lead you to redundancy. All this will lead you to some kind of inconsistency. So when you are storing multiple copies, that is called as your redundancy. Same information 100 times you have, 100 copies you have. Okay. So this redundancy will lead you to several problems, as I told you now. Okay. The first problem, as I said, when you are entering the same data multiple times, I have to enter. Once I have to enter in my sheet, once I have to enter in HOD sheet, once I have to enter in accounts section. So every time I go on entering, I'll make out some mistake. I'm a human. So instead of writing 1BY, I'll write something else. So that will give you this error, right? Some kind of error will be there when you are trying to do some duplication. The second problem that will arise because of this redundancy is storage space. Same copy, same information, 10 copies I am having means it's a waste of space. Is it not? So same data is getting stored repeatedly. And this is a serious problem when we have some large data. The third problem, as I told is, as I told you here, inconsistencies in data. Inconsistency means I am updating all the multiple copies, but what I am doing, since I am human, I am prone to a lot of errors, right? So I am not typing it properly. Somewhere I am typing it as 002, somewhere 02, somewhere Y is missing. All this problem will happen. That can lead you to some kind of inconsistencies. So in order to avoid all this, you go in for database. What is an advantage in database? We cannot say that the redundancy is completely not at all there. Redundancy is still there. Even in database, there is some duplication of data, but controlled. It is controlled. To some extent only there is some redundancy. There is not redundancy as much as we had in case of multiple copies of the same data. So what happens in the same problem, in case of a database approach, what will happen? I will change the USN in one place. That's all. We have a common repository. I change it in only one place, and that gets reflected in all the copies. Whoever is accessing that particular database will see the same USN. That is why you call it as controlled redundancy. It's one of the important advantage of using the database. Am I clear?
Yes,
That is our, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. That is our first advantage. Second advantage we'll go into. Second advantage is restricting unauthorized access. restricting unauthorized access. So when we have a large database, what will happen? There is not going to be a single person who is going to use this database. Obviously, you will have multiple users, right? So there are going to be multiple users who are going to use this large database. Amazon website. That's a database. Amazon is a database behind the website. You have a database, huge database. Is there only one person who is using Amazon? No. There are several, multiple thousands of users who are using this. Amazon database. Let's take this Facebook. So much huge database is there behind the Facebook, whatever web page you're seeing. Are there only one user? Are there only single user or a couple of users? There are multiple millions of users. Flipkart, millions of users again. So like this, you have large database. There is always a multiple users who are involved. Now, when there are multiple users involved, most of the users will not be authorized to access all the information. All the users will not be able to access all the information. There is always some kind of a restriction. How do you bring in, especially when you when you're dealing with some kind of a financial data? Not all will have access to all the financial data of a particular organization, let us say. So some users are permitted only to view the data, whereas some users are allowed to do some minor editing, but not the whole editing. Certain fields I can edit, certain fields I can't edit. That kind of this one. Some of them will only view. Some of them will be able to edit a few data, but not all the data. Some of them will be allowed to update to a greater extent. They'll be allowed to update all the data that is there in the database. So like this, the permissions or the access for different users is going to be different. All the users cannot access all the information which is there in the database. You can restrict the access because you are making use of a database. You provide some kind of a security system. You provide some kind of an authorization subsystem or an authorization module is there which will take care of this kind of a restricting the access. Administrator, for example, he will have he's a privileged user, he is administrator, because he's able to access everything, he's controlling the whole database, so he will have all the options, whereas not all of us will have every option. So that is another advantage. So that by this, what is an advantage in that way? You are restricting unauthorized access, thereby you are protecting your database. Your data is not corrupted, your data is not meddled with some other users. Unwanted people cannot just enter and edit whatever they want. Right? All right. So the next advantage is one minute. Just changing the sheets. Okay. All right. The third advantage is providing persistent storage. Persistent means what? Storage. Persistent means something which is continuous. You try to provide some continuous storage. Now, what do we mean by providing? Database can be used to provide persistent storage. Means what? It can provide persistent storage. It can provide persistent continuous, I said, no? It can provide data structures. What do we mean by this? Now, when we make use of a programming language, let us say, not a database, but a programming language when you make use of, let us say we are using C++ or we are using Java, or you try to use Python, something like this. You are trying to use some programming language. In that case, what will happen? You have some complex data structures, correct? Now, the data structures that you are using in C++ or the data types that you use in C++ may vary from the data types that you are using in Python, may vary from the data structure that you are using in Python. And moreover, what will happen when the values, you may be using several variables, is it not, in a programming language. Now, the values of these variables will get discarded. Once your program terminates, all this will get discarded. Unless you are storing them somewhere in some kind of permanent files, or you are making use of some suitable file storage, all this data will get discarded. So if the programmer wants to read this data once more, again he must try to give in some data, give the values for those variables, and then try to do it. So that becomes a little difficult. Whereas such an object or such a data structure or a variable is said to be persistent. That means even if you try to execute or terminate means end the program, you will still be able to retrieve the data from the database. Whereas that may not be possible when you go for a file processing system. Right? So that means you are not able to do some kind of implicit storage rather, in case of a programming language, whereas it is possible when you make use of a database. Next, the next important advantage is providing, I've told this many times, providing multiple user interface. Multiple user interface. Can anybody talk about this? I've been telling you all, I think, many times on touching upon this aspect. Anyone? Okay. Now, providing multiple user interface. Multiple user interface. What are the different types of user interfaces you can have? You can have menu driven. You can have some kind of graphical user interface. You can have some kind of what we call command codes. That means you try to provide the command. These are all, many types of users are there. That's what we have seen, who are going to use that particular database. So each one may need a different type of a user interface. All of the users may not need the same kind of interface. Some may require some kind of a form based. If they are doing some survey, they may need a form based. Some may go for a query based interface. Okay, so that means they are going to do some different kinds of, these are all different kind of interface that can be provided for multiple users. So that database designer has to, I said, what is his job? He has to talk to the different users, collect all the requirements, and then based on their requirements, he has to design the database. So based on their requirement, he has to decide what kind of user interface can be provided. So based on the requirement, the user will suggest, based on what requirement the user is giving, the database designer has to develop multiple user interface. You cannot say one database will have only one interface. That is also not possible, right? Next, enforcing integrity constraints. Now, most of the database applications, they have some integrity constraints that must hold for the data. What do we mean by this integrity constraints? Constraints means what? There should be some kind of restrictions. There will be some kind of limitations. They are all nothing but constraints. Now, every DBMS should provide capability to define some kind of constraints, define and implement also, or enforce those constraints. In the last class, we saw how we can add a primary key. Primary key is also a constraint. Unique constraint. That means a unique key constraint. Okay. So that means what? One of the particular field should be made unique. That's a constraint. That's a limitation there. You cannot have duplicate values for that particular field. So a DBMS should be able to provide and should be able to enforce these kind of constraints. Now, it need not be always a primary key constraint. Constraints can be there for any type of field, any field of the database. You can apply a constraint. You can apply a constraint for the entire table. In the lab sessions, we'll be seeing all this more. For example, I want to say the age should not be less than 18. Suppose I am trying to build a election database. Let us say. What is my constraint on the voter's age? It should and must be greater than or equal to 18. Yeah. So nobody should be less than 18. That is a constraint that I am putting on the age of the voters. Okay. So why I gave this example is constraint need not always be primary key. Primary key is also one of the constraint. That's all. But you can have constraints on the entire table, on the entire database, on a particular field, on a particular record. You can have different types of constraints. Now, I also say, let us say I say the name of the employee cannot be null. That is another constraint. I cannot leave it null. Every employee should and must have a name. I cannot, you can have duplicate names. That's okay for me. Two people can be called as ABC. That's so fine. But name should not be left null. That's again a constraint there, right? So they are all different types of constraints. What else can I give you all? Okay, sometimes you can also have constraints which are based on business rules. For example, suppose I want to generate a report. My report should look in this manner only. Like I should have a proper heading, the date has to be on the left side, page number should be on the right side, something like this. You know, there is a certain, what I call it as template. So that is also a constraint. My business rule means some rules which are with respect to the organization. That also has to be incorporated into the database, because from there I take a printout. When I take a printout, the report has to come in this particular template only. I cannot make use of any other template. Then I may also add another rule. When once you finish the printout, it has to be immediately deleted. This is also a constraint. So this is also a business constraint. I don't want my data to be hanging around in the database there. Whoever has generated any report, that has to be deleted if once the printout is taken. So that's again a constraint. So constraints can be of various types. Okay, it can be of various types. It can be applied at different levels. When I say level, you can apply it to one column, you can apply it to several columns, you can apply it to the entire table, you can apply it to the entire database. It is possible. All right. So that is nothing but your constraint. So DBMS, what's an advantage of this? DBMS should be able to provide you some mechanism so that you can define and you can enforce the constraints on the database. Right. The next one is, additional implications of using some of the other additional advantages, or you can call it as additional implications of using this database approach. As I told you already, this I already covered, which is nothing but potential for enforcing standards. That's why I said I'm having a standard template. I have certain rules, business rules. These are all nothing but the DBMS should provide you some kind of a mechanism in order to enforce the standards. Then the next one is reduced application development time. All right. Now, when I say reduced application development time, if there are certain database which is already existing, which will help you in, which has certain common fields or common features, you can always use or reuse that particular database and add whatever you want. Because designing and implementing a new database from the scratch will take more time than you trying to reuse a particular one which is already existing. That is what I said, meant by reduced application development time. Another important advantage is flexibility. Now, the requirements from the customers or the end users will not remain the same for all the time to come. There will always be a lot of changes in the requirements. Now, you should not design your database in such a way that you cannot make even a small change. Or if you want to make a small change, it is going to drastically pull down the entire database. That's a very bad, poor designing of a database. Your database should be flexible. For example, it may be necessary to add a new file to the database or to extend the database with some different. That day in the example we saw employee database, I added a salary column. Somewhere in between, after such a long time, we added a salary column. We could do it with so much of ease, is it not? That is how it should be. You should not make your database very complex that you cannot change anything at all. That's a very poor or bad designing of a database. Okay. The last one is economy of scale. When I say economy of scale, your database should be very economical. You should not make your database in such a way that your resources are getting wasted to a greater extent. DBMS always, it will allow you to consolidate data applications. Thereby you are trying to reduce your amount. So much of waste of time. Time should not get wasted. Your cost also should not be getting wasted. Economy of scale means you should always see to it that it is what I would say is cost and time efficient. Okay, you should make your database in such a way. Any doubts so far? These are major advantages of using a database. Any doubts? Any questions? It's all only theory for now. I understand that, but then maybe next class or so we can start with something really interesting which will help you in your lab sessions also. But before doing all these advantages and things like that, we cannot proceed further also as well. So we can't skip anything. And these are all very important questions in your in your examination as to what are the advantages of DBMS approach, or who are the actors on the scene, workers are behind the scene. These are all very, very important. If you take out any previous question papers, you will also be able to see these questions at least once appearing in every paper almost. The first module, these questions will be there. Any doubts before we go further? Persistent storage. Okay. See, persistent storage means continuous storage. Okay. When I say continuous storage, when we talk of persistent storage, when you are using a file or when you are using an application program, right, you are trying to define some variables. Once you define variables, obviously during the course of that program, executing that program, you are assigning some values to that variable and all that stuff. Now, when you terminate that program, what will happen? All the values that you had given for that variable is lost. Unless you make some special arrangement in order to store that information permanently, it is not going to happen. You would have observed this while you are doing all your programs. Suppose you are trying to add two numbers. You have written a program to add two numbers. I am taking a very simple one. Okay. You run that program. You give some value for A, you give some value for B. Now I terminate that program. Means I end that program. Do you think the value of A and B will be there? Will it retain the value of A and B? It will not retain. Correct? So that is not possible in case of a storage, in case of a file processing system or a file processing approach. But when you go for a DBMS, I said in the last class we had seen in the lab session that we had created an employee table. We had fields like employee ID, name, all these fields we had. We gave in some data for each of the employees. There were 5 employees. 5 employee ke liye we gave EMP ID. We gave name for 5 employees. We gave salary for 5 employees. And then we said commit and we exit. Came out of the thing. If you log in again and see select star from employee, you will still see that particular data. That is what we mean by saying DBMS helps you to provide persistent storage. Continuous storage will be there. You will not lose your data as you lose in case of file processing system. Am I made it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Right. Any other questions, please? It's a very simple topic, these are, because majorly I think most of you all would have learned it somewhere, advantages of DBMS. These are very general things. So if you know the points, you can put it still on your own, in your own words. That is also, that also is possible. Right. But these topics are very important just because it's very theoretical, I understand, but then it's important that you learn it properly, and it will fetch you a lot of marks in the first module questions. Answer your attendance. Anaga?
Yes, ma'am.
Abhilash?
Yes, ma'am.
Akhil?
Yes, ma'am.
Akrut?
Yes, ma'am.
Anusha?
Yes, ma'am.
Arvind?
Present, ma'am.
Arifullah?
Yes, ma'am.
Benakraj?
Present, ma'am.
Banu? Banu Prakash? Bhargav?
Yes, ma'am.
Rahmatullah?
Present, ma'am.
Chaitra?
Present, ma'am.
Chandana?
Present, ma'am.
Charan? Darshan?
Present, ma'am.
Diksha?
Present, ma'am.
Dakshayani?
Present, ma'am.
Ishan?
Present, ma'am.
Dakshayani, are you present?
Present, ma'am.
Yeah. Harshit? He's not there. Hema?
Present, ma'am.
Huma?
Present, ma'am.
Jayant?
Present, ma'am.
Divya? Kaushik?
Present, ma'am.
Lakshmi?
Ma'am, she has put in chat box.
Lavanya?
Present, ma'am.
Manish?
Present, ma'am.
Manoj?
Present, ma'am.
Mohit?
Yes, ma'am.
Naval?
Yes, ma'am.
Navya?
Present, ma'am.
Nikhil?
Present, ma'am.
Panindra?
Present, ma'am.
Pavan?
Present, ma'am.
Okay. Pooja?
Present, ma'am.
Purnima?
Yes, ma'am.
Raman?
Yes, ma'am.
Rashmi? Rashmi? She's not there. Rupa?
Yes, ma'am.
Sai Kumar?
Yes, ma'am.
Samir?
Present, ma'am.
Santosh?
Present, ma'am.
Shadab?
Present, ma'am.
Sharan?
Present, ma'am.
Prashant?
Yes, ma'am.
Peter?
Present, ma'am.
Shivani?
Present, ma'am.
Soumya? Spurti?
Present, ma'am.
Vishnu?
Present, ma'am.
Sugandhini?
Present, ma'am.
Krishna,
Present, ma'am.
Smita,
Present, ma'am.
Smita, you,
Present, ma'am.
Deepta, Tripti,
Present, ma'am.
Present, ma'am.
Harsha,
Present, ma'am.
Reena.
Present, ma'am.
Right. So thank you all. We'll meet again in tomorrow's class. Thank you.
Excuse me, ma'am.